one thing that Brennan and I were talking about too was the article you and Dr. Hancock wrote about media coverage at the Pulse nightclub shooting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was a really powerful article. And I think you were just hinting on like invisibility and how that's just been an overarching theme. And that really like opened up my eyes, because I think the media has just so much power in controlling what we see and manipulating beliefs. And I guess thinking about how they portrayed that as more of I guess you could give background as to what you kind of wrote about.
Yeah. Could you provide some context, a little bit more context to what Nick's describing?
I remember writing the article.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in response to the media coverage of the Pulse nightclub massacre in Orlando, where the media, and you'll have to help me with the details here of what I said that was so impactful. But Dr. Hancock was first author, so it was she who did most of it. But I think we felt at the time that media coverage of the event did a bit of a disservice to our community, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was the general theme, in that we were depicted this whole business of was it or was it not a hate crime?
Mm-hmm.
How, in God's name, could that even be a question? If you take an assault weapon into a mosque or a synagogue or a church where African Americans are praying, how is that not a hate crime? That is a hate crime. You have been targeted simply because of who you are. And there was nothing different in that discotheque that night in Orlando. And not only that, it was a racist hate crime. Why? Because it was a venue that was primarily frequented by Latino and Latinx people. Plus the fact not everybody inside was gay. And for the media to have reported that of some, there were even some innocent straight people in there. It's like, well, what the fuck? What were we guilty of that we deserve to die?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in there was a victim.
Yeah.
What else did we say that was important?
Well, no, I think that you touched on most of it, and the overarching theme was just that the media and the people who were really talking about the experience were really highlighting the terrorism piece and really saying that it's a terrorist act and an act of terror. And the piece about the hate crime was very swept under the rug. It was maybe subtly mentioned at times, but it was never a focus and never emphasized.
Because this fellow, thank you, it's all coming back to me now, Nick, because this fellow was supposedly this hothead who had subscribed to some of the more radical jihadist kinds of beliefs, and he'd been on the internet and this and that and the other thing and all that. And so, yes, you can call it terrorism, but it doesn't mean that it can't also be a hate crime. Why did he pick this particular venue, right? Someplace where people of a certain group are going to congregate. This was not shooting up a shopping mall, a movie theater, anything else, a school, any of the other places where, and what is our absolute tolerance of gun violence about? What's it like sending a kid to school these days if you are willing to risk the health situation? But that's a little bit side the point. I just feel like in this circumstance, our community was ignored, bypassed in terms of the impact on us.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to highlight how big of an impact that can have.
Exactly.
Like, that just reinforces the idea of invisibility. And
exactly.
Yeah, and it's like, well, we make progress. Things like this can be very dangerous.
Absolutely, because I I tell you that morning after, when everybody's staring at the TV in horror, I'm going to venture to say there's not a gay person in this country who didn't look at that thinking, that could have been me.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been my lover. That could have been my brother. That could have been a family member. That could have been a dear friend of mine, because so many lives were impacted by those 46 murders. So many lives.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about the ripple effect, anytime something like that happens. And so I'm just saying, let's call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's speak truthfully. Let's not sweep it under the rug and pretend that this anti-gay violence doesn't exist, or that the current administration demanding that trans people not receive health care anymore or not have the right to serve in the military. You think that doesn't have some connection to why so many trans women of color have been murdered this year already? There's an epidemic of it. But where is a trans person going to get a job? It's still a difficult question. And so many have to turn to sex work. They have absolutely no recourse otherwise. And that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
That is dangerous.